Well, in the time since the last episode, the industry decided to release some bad games, almost as if in response to my previous declaration that they don't make bad games anymore, just disappointing ones that aren't as good as people hoped. Game devs tripped over each other, scrambling hand over foot to deliver multiple instances of straight up garbage. Crime Boss Rock Case City came out 3 days before that episode, which I mentioned in it, but now we've got Redfall and The Lord of the Rings Gollum, all within less than a 2 month period. Three big-ish games, all flopped harder than a giant penis onto its coworker's desk. To be fair, I don't know a single inhabitant of this planet that thought Lord of the Rings Gollum was going to be good. That thing looked like shit from the get-go. The least likable character in the franchise in a stealth game where all the textures went mudding and never showered. I heard it was the worst reviewed game of 2023 so far, even worse than Crime Boss. One reviewer said the game crashed over 100 times from start to finish. That seems like something a QA tester might have caught if they ever even bothered booting the game up before releasing it like an invasive species into the public to ruin the fucking ecosystem. I have to wonder what it's like for devs to work on a game knowing it's a piece of irredeemable trash. Like, I would love to see an interview where someone questions the programming lead or game director of Gollum, like, hey, how come this sucked egregious ass, and what was the process of shitting it out like? How come you thought this was a good idea to begin with? Why did you give it PS3 graphics and then recommend its minimum PC requirements to be positively futuristic? Why haven't you closed down as a studio with such untalented and or mismanaged staff? The few times I've seen dev interviews where they actually were candid about failures of big projects, the dev always has to remain anonymous because of the potentially burnt bridges, talking about higher-ups being dog shit at their jobs. That's a dumb climate to foster, and nobody should be penalized for speaking their mind about stuff like that. All the admonishments and position reshuffling happens behind the scenes, and we rarely get to see who is really responsible for any given project being as bad as it was. Of course, most devs and team leads are nameless anyway. The ending credits might as well be the dinner menu at IHOP for all anybody's reading them, but maybe that would change if right after the special thanks they had a studio grievance list where everyone on the dev team could just air their complaints about whoever else just for fun. They'd be like, those pop-in textures in the main hub world, thank Jasper for those. Or, the combat feels stiff because Jacob came to work drunk every other morning for 6 weeks. I want more industry drama to get invested in without people needing to get raped. But even though 2023 has already had an unhealthy dose of bad games, they're still mostly good. I've played 17 good ones since January, and it's currently near the end of May. I have absolutely no worries that there won't be a strong lineup of Game of the Year contenders by the end. We've still got Diablo 4, Starfield, Final Fantasy 16, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2 coming up, in addition to whatever you think is good enough already. I know Tears of the Kingdom is big on people's lists, plus Hogwarts Legacy, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and the Resident Evil 4 remake. But there's also plenty of games that are top 10 worthy, even if they shouldn't win the big honor. And I can already tell my list is going to be wacky this year. I want to touch more on Tears of the Kingdom, though, because people have been asking what I think of it and how far I am and whatnot. I'm probably 9 hours in. It has not been a priority of mine. The amount of deja vu that activates, specifically after you dive down to Earth for the first time and hit the water, it feels like I'm just playing Breath of the Wild again. And I know what some people are going to say. Yes, there are new power-ups, and they seem game-changing at first, but it doesn't really hide the fact that you are once again in the exact same plot and plot of land, nudged toward the 4 same corners of the same map to complete very similar objectives because Hyrule Castle is again surrounded by dark energy, except now it's different because it's floating. I don't know why you even have to fill in the map again. It's the same locales. If you want to reveal me the new Sky Island stuff on the map this time around, fine. But I don't know why my Sheikah slate is acting like I'm in uncharted territory when I'm standing in the same Rito village as before, except now there's snow, until you do the quest, and then there's no more snow. Ultra Hand is the premier feature of Tears of the Kingdom. It's absolutely the most transformative thing they added. You know, if you're a structural engineer. Otherwise, your contraptions will probably be very simple and consist of rafts and makeshift ladders for slippery slopes. I've seen videos of the crazy stuff people have made with Ultra Hand, gluing parts together and creating literal mechs and all-terrain vehicles. But realistically, you're not going to be doing any of that, so while it's cool that it's possible, that doesn't translate to a drastically altered gameplay experience, and that's coming from someone who was excited about it. I was pretty flaccid about Breath of the Wild back when I played it too. I never understood why people thought it redefined the blueprint for open-world games. I just thought it was a decently good game with some annoyances, like the horrendous weapon durability and dumb temperature mechanics. Dude, get this freezing and scorching bullshit off my game. I'm already playing in my underwear IRL because it's summer and I have no air conditioning. The worst part of my daily life does not need to be replicated in-game. Obviously, you can mitigate it with cooking, but that's just a hurdle nobody should need to have to jump over. I'm trying to run a 100-meter dash out here, not waste time hopping and leaping over unnecessary barriers. If the ingredients are so plentiful that it supposedly makes no difference, then why is it even there to begin with? It just puts a timer on your freedom of exploration, one of the most prominently praised aspects of the game, so it seems counterintuitive to stifle it with temperature meters and their corresponding chores. As far as durability goes, yeah, still hate it. It's better and worse in Tears of the Kingdom. Better, because now you can fuse things to weapons for extra damage and effects, and worse because now you have even cooler weapons that break in 5 hits. I agree with the notion that base weapons should be unlimited durability, and then anything you fuse to it gives it a certain amount of active hits before the fused thing breaks and the original weapon reverts back to its OG state. Fire Emblem is a series that had weapon durability for decades, flirted with removing it in Fates, and then removed it again in the most recent entry, Engage. And while I think it was less necessary for Fire Emblem because their weapons actually had 30 or 40 uses and were used far less frequently than all the real-time whacking you'll be doing in Zelda, getting rid of the durability altogether is still a positive change that simply removes one headache from a game, one less thing to think about, which leaves more brainpower to focus on enjoying what you're doing. In my opinion, I've already played a better version of Breath of the Wild called Immortals Phoenix Rising, which is just that, but with better everything, so to go back to the Breath of the Wild blueprint with Tears of the Kingdom still feels like a step down from Immortals, which had better mobility, much better combat, and supremely better RPG mechanics and upgrades. I've never been a Zelda fan though, so you don't have to think too hard about my opinions. Maybe some of this changes as you get further in, but everyone raves about the Sky Islands and the depths. Bro, the depths suck. It's just dark until it's not, and then it's just more of the same shit. Every piece of Sky Island I've found so far has been a tiny chunk of debris with one chest on it. The shrines have been more fun. I'll definitely cop to that. With the new tools at your disposal, it never feels like I solved the puzzle correctly. It feels like I cheated the game somehow, because generally I have no idea what it actually wanted me to do in the first place. In one puzzle, you have these lit candles and hot air balloons, and you need to go up to a high platform, and the balloons are not normally climbable, but I put a candle in the balloon basket, ran at the candle from just the right angle, and managed to claw my way onto it to get carried up. It's fun to make some unholy contraptions and struggle your way through a solution, but it can also be frustrating because you're probably overcomplicating it and wasting time. It's funny because in a game like this, you'll say you've played for 9 hours, and people will be like, oh, so you haven't even played it. It's a big game, but 9 hours is still 9 hours. The reason you don't make a lot of progress in 9 hours is because the game gives you so much lateral work to do, so you prioritize that and don't engage much with the perks of main story progress, and that can be fun and good, like in Skyrim, but if there's a bunch of helpful new mechanics along the main path, you're missing out when you put that off, and I definitely feel like Tears of the Kingdom is a game where you're going to sorely miss out if you don't immediately make a beeline for wherever other people have found something important as a reward. All these guides that are like, here's what you should do first in The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and it feels more important that you follow that advice than in other open world games, or you'll just have a lesser experience. Elden Ring was like that too, though. In my first playthrough, I spent like 6 hours looking before I finally found a decent weapon that scaled with my build. Had I known where it was to begin with, things would have been a lot smoother with a lot less underpowered floundering. So some of that is just open world games in general, which is a genre that has had many people fatigued at different times in the past decade or so. Elden Ring seemed to revitalize it for a lot of people, though, and now Zelda is carrying it for everyone who still isn't sick of it. Makes you wonder if that open world energy is about to run out, though. Will the next big open world title keep players satisfied? Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos and complain about how similar they are, and I'll see you guys next time.